How do you advise your clients to prepare for the kids'
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
emotional outburst, if you will, because they are children and it's
Yes.
hard for them, right?
Yeah. It's hard. It's you be there for them, you be a support system. Some kids might need therapy, and you get them that if they need that, and you don't feel like there's shame for having your kids go to a therapist, like, get them the appropriate resources. But for some, it's just allow them to feel all of the things and listen to them. I think that's a big part, like, as parents, we wanna fix it. We wanna fix them feeling sad. It's just let them have those feelings and telling them that it's normal and that we're here and that we still love you. The best possible option is for you and your ex to be a united front. It's not possible for everyone, but the more united you are as a resource for your kids, the better your child will actually thrive through all of this. One of the things I got divorced when my son was 2, and as he might have been in like first or second grade, and he did something in school, and the teacher calls, and one of us gets the phone call, and one of us immediately calls the other person. And when I pick him up that day, I was like, oh, what did you do? And he's like, are you gonna tell dad? I'm like, I already told him, of course. I remember him saying, like, I hate that you and dad talk so much because I can't get away with anything. And I was like, that's a success story. I'm like, the fact that my kid knows that we communicate with each other and that we're on the same page. So he's getting consequences at my house and he's getting the same ones at his house and he's not getting away with anything.
Right, right.
Like, that's what you want it to be. You don't want your kids to feel like they're different people at each house.
Yes, that was really good. So is that how you define a successful divorce?
That's how I would define it. If you can attend your kid's soccer game and pull up your chair next to your ex and sit there next to them watching, I think that's a successful divorce. Goes for weddings. If your child is planning a wedding and they're not stressed out because of the parents and who's walking in with who and who's sitting where and making sure one's at table 1 and the other one's going to be mad because they're at table 3, like, if your child doesn't have to worry about that, then that's a success.
What is the rate of this successful divorce that you see on a regular basis? Is it
Oh,
high?
so it's always hard to quantify that.
Mm,
I would say that more people if people are reaching an agreement, that's a success in and of itself. More people reach an agreement than they have to go in front of a judge or go to trial. Most of our, if I'm looking at like our caseload, I would say 10-15% go to trial, the rest reach an agreement.
yeah.
That's a measure, but even sometimes reaching an agreement isn't the end of it and doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't high conflict and aren't going to end up back in court over and over again. So it's really hard to quantify that.
What is the role of forgiveness in this
Um,
process?
well, you know what they say is forgiveness is not about the other person, it's for you.
Yes.
I think it's a lot harder to hold on to anger than it is to forgive. Like, I think it takes so much energy to be angry and to hold on to resentment. And if you release that, then it just your life becomes much calmer and more peaceful. So it's always like an inward thing. I think it's hard though. I think there's sometimes people don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not going to be like all Pollyannish about, everyone deserves forgiveness. I don't think so. I think some people have done some pretty horrible things and don't deserve that. And so it's not in that case, it's not forgiving them. It's just making peace with what's happened in your life and moving forward with that. But, it's a hard one for sure.
Have you ever experienced the crossroad between forgiveness and being angry so much that you don't know how to release. Have you had that experience personally?
Yeah, I absolutely have. I've had it professionally, I've had it personally. I don't think anyone goes through their life without bumping up against that at some point. And I look at it like from a professional perspective, I look at it like, well, this is really silly that I'm holding on to this because I'm allowing this person to live rent free in my head and they don't deserve to be there. And so that's the reason of releasing it there. You can forget, forgive, I'd say you can release, but you don't have to forget. Like you can be like, okay, I'm kind of done. I'm not gonna hold on to this anymore. But I remember what happened and what that person did, and it just sets up trust for any other interactions moving forward. I think that kind of works all around too. It's like trust but verify, moving forward. It's like everything that we go through is a learning experience for us. So if you have an ex and you might forgive and you know that their behavior won't change, then it maybe just teaches you how to respond to them or deal with them or not show up to the fight that they're inviting you to moving forward.
Right. Thank you for all these wonderful insights. Let's talk about your businesses. So you started and built your business from scratch.
Yep. Yep. So my law firm was on a folding desk is how I will tell the story because when I decided to
Great.
open up my own law firm, I went and bought the big fancy desk, had it delivered, delivery guys showed up and they couldn't get it through the front door. So I had to work on a folding desk for months until I found a desk. So yes, so I'm very much a creative. I love the business side of things. So I for many, many years worked as just one lawyer and then slowly we grew from there and now we're a team of 14 and we have 3 locations and I'm always sort of looking at what's the next for the business. How do we stand out? How do we scale? How do we be better? How do we serve clients better? So it's been entrepreneurship has just been a really fun journey.
What sparked that idea of I want to have my own law firm happy even after?
The true story is my son was the first one dropped off at daycare, the last one picked up, and I did not want that to be his story. And I knew if I opened up my own practice, then it would be on my terms and I would have some flexibility, which, in hindsight, it's like when you're being a business owner is you work 80 hours to never have to work 40 for somebody else. It's like that, but at least it was on my terms and I could go in later or I could leave early to get him. I wasn't going to miss anything. I wasn't going to miss plays and games and all of that. So that was the reason for it.
And why did you choose that name?
So
Happy.
that name actually came about 6 years ago. For a long time, the law firm had my name on it. And I decided that I wanted to, as I was starting to think about how to market the business in a different way, and I had a vision for growth, I thought about what people wanted. People want to be happy. And quite frankly, I wanted people to not call the office and always ask for me as I was growing and we were adding new lawyers. I wanted us to be a real team and it wasn't just I was the only lawyer that someone wanted. So taking my name off of it allowed me to do that, but also promised it's like the promise of what people want. And I thought from a marketing perspective, no one has a different name like that. Like everyone puts their own last name on their law firm, which is kind of typical in the lawyer world. And so I always like to sort of push to see what we can do differently. And that was where the name came from.
Did you ever face any challenges choosing that name or
Yes. So
would you be able to talk about that?
yeah, yeah. When I changed the name, I had this old time lawyer who had been practicing probably 50 years call me up and he was like, "Well, that is a dumb name. Why would you ever do that?" And of course he was like the law office of, Tom Jones, whatever, like every other law firm out there. And I just kind of laughed. I'm like, "Okay, well," I'm like, we'll see where my business is and yours is in the next couple of years, and it's the thing that we get people calling all the time and saying, I'm calling because I love the name of the firm." and that stood out. So yeah, so you have old school thinking are always going to push back against something innovative.
You created um the an app,
Yes.
right? She Who Wins, right?
Yes. Yep.
So what's the story behind this app? Was it just one person invention or
So it's actually funny, totally different. This is another example of like being an entrepreneur who's going in all different directions. I have a good friend who is a tarot card reader, and over the years, she was a huge referral source for me. Like she would have clients come to her, she would give readings, and she'd be like, "Listen, I'm sending somebody to you. They're going to need a divorce soon," and it's so like such
no,
an
okay.
unlikely referral partner. And she's been reading for over 40 years, and she saw that there were a lot of sites out there that were kind of scammy, and she didn't like it. Like she has a ton of integrity, and she's like, I would love to create an app where I can vet the readers. I know they're qualified. I know that they have integrity, or they're not like trying to keep you on the phone just to make you spend money, and it's a place for anyone to go to for any sort of spiritual services. We have like Reiki on there and astrology and tarot card, and so we launched that this year. We're slowly building and adding other types of coaches to it, but it's really meant to be a resource for a woman to go to, or really anyone, but we call it She Who Wins. Someone to go to, and they're looking for guidance. They're looking for someone to help them through something, and it happens to be that, like, our tarot card readers are the most popular ones, but we do have other people on there with other skill sets to help someone.
Interesting. So that's what it's called on the App Store.
Yep, it's She Who Wins on the App Store.
Mm.
Yep.
Lovely. F- So your focus is mostly on women, correct? Or do you
No.
also
Yep.
Okay.
No, so our family law practice does men and women equally. We
Okay.
have yeah.
But your app
Yep.
is for women only?
It's not only. We do actually have a tarot card reader on there who's a man. He's quite popular. So it's not. It just happened to be we named it that because my book came out, She Who Wins, and we decided to use the same name for the app. So a lot of the speaking I do is usually for women's groups and business leaders who are women. It tends to be who is kind of looking for that type of keynote, but it's not. I don't market myself as a female only. And
Right.
yeah.
What do you think are the challenges of female entrepreneurs in today's society?
Oh, yeah. Like the statistics are crazy for the number of investors who invest in female businesses versus male businesses. Like it's so low.
Mhm.
So just getting investment dollars for your business, if you have an idea like a tech idea or something like that, it is really, really hard to get someone to back you financially, which is really sad.
Why do you think that is?
I think that I wish I had the answer for that, because if we had the answer, we would know how to fix it. I think that women aren't necessarily getting the same audiences with these private equity or venture capitalists, that they're maybe not putting themselves out there to ask, to make the ask, that there's sort of some imposter syndrome behind that. That could be a reason. I do know there's a couple venture capitalism firms that came out over the past few years that are female owned and female funded, which I think is great because they're trying to change that conversation.
Mhm. Do you know their names on top of your head?
I don't. I don't. I'll have
Okay.
to I can send it to you.
Sure.
Uh, so I think that as a female entrepreneur, I think sometimes it's hard to be taken seriously. I think I had a guy once say something like to me in kind of a condescending way of like, you have no problem promoting yourself online. And I'm thinking to myself, you mean marketing myself? Like advertising my business? Like, is that what you're trying to call me out for? So I think that women are held to this standard that men are not necessarily. And I think that there's an incredible circle and resources of women who are lifting each other up, which is amazing. But I still think that there are definitely struggles. I think even like the podcasting world, the statistics of like male podcasters with female is like is some crazy number. So I don't know why.
Well, I don't I don't know either. You deal with a lot of families, obviously, and
Mhm.
divorce is not a happy thing for sure. And you will be present in that space with other clients who
Mhm.
are going through life transitions. How do you detach yourself from their pain and still are there compassionately
Yeah.
to help them go through this transition?
It's a great question. It took years of practice to do that because as like I'm such an empath, so sometimes I have cases that just stick with me and they're like we're doing the right work for the right reasons, and it becomes hard to not take on that passion for the issue. I mean, and that still happens. I have a case like that now that I still very much feel passionate about, and I won't detach myself from that because what I feel is right, and that's sort of the thing that drives me forward in order to go into court and advocate for that particular person. But I think sometimes, you can't do that for all of the cases, and it's just recognizing I can be a compassionate listener. I can be an advocate, but I don't have to like their emotions are not mine, and in order for me to do my job, I don't have to feel the things that they're feeling. And if I did, I could actually be making it worse for them, right? Because it might be validating something that we need to put it in its place and look at things kind of like business like.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned hope at the beginning of our conversation. So hope can feel fragile, right?
Mm,
When you are going through divorce. So
yep.
how do you talk to your clients about hope without dismissing the grief?
Um, I think it's grace. I think you can't have hope
Oh.
without grace. Like I think that it's it's going to be there are going to be days where it's not there. There's going to be days where it's fleeting. There's going to be days where you're grieving and allow yourself to feel all of that, and still be very mindful of this is just a moment in time. And I think when you start to if you get stuck and it becomes a pattern and it becomes week after week of feeling hopeless, like then I think you get help to deal with it. You go to the proper resources in order to get past that. But I think it's totally normal to have it hope come and go. But it's the and I think it happens in a small way, incrementally. Like one day you feel a little less bad, and then another day you feel even less bad than that. And then one day you're really happy, and then another day, like now you can't even remember what life was like before you got divorced. So it's just having patience with yourself and recognizing it doesn't all have to be perfect immediately.
Do you think divorce changed you in any way
Of course.
everlastingly?
Yeah, I think divorce changes everybody. I think some people get through divorce and they hold on to resentment and anger, and the anger changes them forever.
Right.
For me, it was resilience. It was getting through a divorce and I remember after my second divorce, I had to cut the grass at my house, and I looked out and I'm like, oh, it hadn't been done, and um, I was not the one who did it, and I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna figure out how to do this." And I went into the shed and like pulled a weed whacker out and like powered the thing up, and I was like, I was gonna weed whack my entire backyard. And about 4 hours later, I got it done. It looked like really bad. It was all hacked up, like grass clippings everywhere. But I was like, all right, I figured this out, and now I'm gonna go call a landscaper. But you learn to be resilient, and you learn how strong you are. And like if something's that's not going to take you down. You just, like we talked about before, it's like when you do those hard things, it becomes, you recognize that the next hard thing that you come across, you're like, all right, I know this is just a moment. So, that was my takeaway from it, was the resilience and like the grittiness and like the rebuild, was like, all right, I'm going to do this. It's going to be hard. There's going to be days where I'm lonely, but I'm still going to power through this. And so I'm grateful that I didn't hold on to anger or any of that stuff from it. But I gave myself a lot of time to heal and did a lot of reflection on that and kind of held the mirror up, um, to myself and my role in all of it, because
That's very
it's
important.
deciding you're not going to be a victim, and it's recognizing, how did I factor into what happened. It's a conversation I think everyone has to have with themselves.
Yes. So divorce sometimes is necessary, right? Sometimes it has to take place.
Yeah,
And there's this shame and quietness of guilt, if you will, is behind it.
yeah.
So how one can process that emotion?
So I had a lot of shame around my divorces, and the thing that changed that for me was actually talking about them. And the first time I spoke about my divorce was on a podcast with a friend. I had no idea she was going to ask me about my divorce, but she did, and it felt so liberating. And so putting words to something, I think, is freeing. But I say that, that doesn't mean bashing your ex or going online and writing posts about how horrible they are. That's not what I'm talking about at all. They shouldn't even be part of the conversation. It's really about like the inward piece of it, like talking about, I had shame and how hard it was and I missed my kid. And like you're talking about that part. It has everything to do with you, nothing to do with your ex. That person doesn't need an identity, doesn't need to be part of that story. And that's the thing that, I think, helps you come out of all of those feelings. And then what happens is you start to attract other people who say, "Well, me too." There's lots of communities out there of people who have gone through that, and they become support systems and friends, and you just surround yourself with the right people who help lift you up.
That was very interesting, and that's so true. Taking responsibility for
Yeah.
your own responses.
Right.
Do you ever ask your clients certain questions that take them inward, to look inward rather than blaming on the other party all the faults and wrongdoing?
Yeah. So we actually, as part of our process, we have every client meet with a divorce coach who's in house, for that purpose.
Interesting.
Because it's for the lawyers to do their jobs, we need to understand how the client's feeling, what their fears are, and some of that internal stuff. So it's always really helpful and sometimes they can't do that necessarily with the lawyer. And sometimes the lawyers are like, we have to get to business. So carving out that time with a divorce coach helps them pull out that information. And then other times, it certainly slips into any representation, and depends on someone's personality and what level of hand-holding, I would say, they need, or kind of compassion they need, that, is so individual to each client.
Right. Lastly,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you actually about your book again. So
Yeah.
what do you talk about in your book? What is the focus of your book?
So the book is called She Who Wins, and it is all about what your first question was, is how do you overcome, or one of your early questions is how to overcome uncertainty and to win at your life. And I teach a framework in there that's about really tapping into your intuition and dropping your excuses and taking action, because action has to
Mm.
happen. And so a lot of times you'll hear of like manifestation, and like I'm cool with all that, but you have to take action. Like action is the thing. We can't just dream it and have expect it to appear, and then also then releasing the outcome of it and releasing some of the control of what happens on the other side of that. So the I'm very much a storyteller, I'm a writer, so this book is filled with lots of stories, some of my own personal stories, some others, but it's certainly not a memoir, but it's certainly not, do all of this and you will, become awesome. It's much more of meant to be funny. I've heard it's made people cry. So just to bring someone on an emotional personal development journey, but I don't love the word personal development, but that's where it lives on a shelf, is in that space.
Do you have any other books?
So I'm actually a fiction writer.
Oh, you are?
I am. So that's so funny. The funny story there
Hey.
is I got my literary agent from a fiction book that we never sold. We sold She Who Wins. I wrote that. I just finished over the summer writing another fiction book that we're in the process of pitching to publishers right now. And then I have another fiction that hasn't sold. So I'm working on that part of it. I have another nonfiction that is out in the world that we're trying to pitch to. So
Wait,
um,
how do you do all of that
it takes a long
together?
I am not going to pretend like the one that I just finished took me 5 years to write. It took a really long time.
Still, you do so many good stuff.
Yeah, well, my son's older now. I have more time.
Still, well, I really enjoyed our conversation, Renee. Thank you so much. This
Of
was such a
course.
dynamic and balanced conversation. I appreciate your time.
Of course, it was great.